I had a customer call me last week who was looking to fit his own decat pipe at home and called to ask if there were any tips or tricks that would make the job a little bit easier. Now, it just so happens I need to fit this decat pipe and pea shooter exhaust to this customer's Sigma car. So I thought, what a great opportunity. We'll put a little video together for you and then you can do it yourself at home. So the first job we're going to do is remove the silencer, which is a really straightforward job. It's held on at the back via an exhaust bobbin, which has a 13mm nut on the top. And then at the front, it's sleeved over the catalytic converter. So we just need to undo the clasp there. So little flathead screwdriver will help you get the cover off the top of the bobbin at the back, just this. And then we need a 13mm socket. Now, it is worth noting that these bobbins have a tendency to perish. So sometimes by undoing these, you will wreck them and therefore will require a new one. Yes, it is. This one is going to die. So there's the same 13mm nut directly underneath. So if you find the top one isn't moving, then the bottom one will. If you find that it's spinning, then you'll need a 13mm spanner on the top and a ratchet underneath, or whichever one is moving more freely. And that can help you to break it off. My colleague Carlos will tell you this is where you need power tools, but we can do it with good old-fashioned tools. Right, so that's now off. Now that we've got the bobbin off at the back, we're going to undo this clasp here. Now this is a 10mm socket. It is worth having some WD-40 on hand or some penetrating spray of some description, as these do tend to get a bit rusty and seize themselves up. So 10mm socket and a small extension. You'll see this has now come loose and we'll pull off the exhaust. From here, we can lift the exhaust up off its bobbin at the back and then just wiggle and rotate this and you'll find that the exhaust will slowly pull backwards. Just mind your rear wheel arch as you come back. It will be very close. Here it comes. There we go. Now that's off. So the next thing we need to do is remove our lambda sensor. You're going to need a 22mm spanner for that, which you don't always get in your average tool set. So that could be a trip to Halfords. So just get that on the lambda and just crack it off. Access with these can be difficult, but usually once it's broken, it's finger tight. You don't really want to twist your lambda cable too many times. So if you get underneath the car, you'll find the plug socket for that. Disconnect it so that we're not ruining the cable. This will just unscrew, so mind your paintwork as you go, and then this will just pull out. Now keep this somewhere safe. So the next job is to remove these spring fasteners. Now these are a pain if you've ever dealt with these before. So what we're going to do is just put something over the paintwork to protect it. For getting these off, what you're really looking to do is with a pair of long nose pliers, clamp the end of one spring and the other end of the spring here. Now it's not the spring itself you want to grip together. It is the U-shaped clips that run through the spring. It might be worth just freeing each of these sides up first. We're going to grab one of the U-bends, but before you grab hold of it, slide the spring back together as much as you can so that you can grip it lower down, and then grab it as firmly as you can and pull it cleanly off the exhaust. So once again, over this piece, crush the spring, grip it with everything you've got. He says, turn my hand around the other way. And then pull it off. We can then remove our piece of paint protection, and then the catalytic converter will just wiggle off. Now these are a push fit and they're never completely straight, so there's usually some friction here. So just give it a little wiggle and pull as you go, and eventually it will just slide out. Now we're going to fit our shiny new catalyst bypass pipe, which is largely repeating the process of taking it off, but in the other direction. Now, for you keen-eyed viewers who notice that all of a sudden there are some orange decals on this car, that's because we're multitasking. But if you would like to see that video in how to fit your own decal kit, then follow the link above. Putting these back together, the way the manifold collects, they don't all line up perfectly. So this takes a little bit of patience and manipulation. So first, make sure that you get the orientation of your bypass pipe correctly. The hole here for the lambda probe will be facing into the car, and you'll also see that there's a hook here for our lovely exhaust springs, which will correspond with the two on the manifolds. Now, the manifolds themselves are sleeved, and obviously we're trying to get these ports into these rings. Now, the manifold itself, the way it collects, they're not perfectly straight, as you can see, so this is going to require some manipulation. So we line this up, offer it up, and then just take your time trying to nudge each of these into place. There we go. Now we're going to refit our favourite springs. So my best tip for fitting these is, well, really it's brute force, but we're going to do that carefully. So take your long nose pliers and hold these as far down as you can. We're then going to hook one side of this exhaust clip on and then drag this forwards. And hook it over the exhaust. If you're struggling with the brute force method, you can actually use a cable tie to pre-compress the spring for you. Pull this through here and pull it tight. Now, it will help to use a pair of pliers or something to help you continue to pull this tight, but it just helps give us a little bit more room. Once you've got this hooked on, we're going to grab our favourite pair of long nose pliers and pull the spring towards you, hooking it over and locking it back into place. We then just use a pair of side cutters to cut the cable tie. Now that our cat's bypass pipe is on the exhaust, we can just remove our paint protection. And now we're going to fit our lambda probe. So before we plug this in, we're going to insert it here into the bypass pipe and screw it up. Now, it will screw up finger tight and then just need a little nip with your 22mm spanner. That's all. And then we're back underneath the car to plug it back in. Now, there should be some points underneath your car for attaching these with cable ties to protect the wire from dragging on the floor. Now that we've got our catalyst bypass pipe refitted to the car, it's just getting the rear silencer on. Now, in this case, because we deathed our last exhaust bobbin, we've fitted a shiny new one here, and it's always worth making sure that that's fitted to the brackets before we put the exhaust on. These are often quite a tight fit, so it is advisable just to pop a little squirt of WD-40 inside there. And it's also important to remember your clamp. The clamp needs to go on before you fit the exhaust, and ultimately it's going to go over the silencer end, so I just pop it on there first. Make sure it's really, really, really loose. We then just offer this up, and much like taking it off, it just requires a bit of care, twisting and wobbling to move it on. Obviously the WD-40 really, really helps at this point. And if you really get stuck, a rubber mallet can come in handy. Certainly for getting them off. There we go. That's now made it onto there. So we're going to take our 13mm nut, which needs to be either a nylock or a normal nut with a locking washer. And we're just going to do that up. Ooh, wrong drill. Nice and tight. So we'll just be careful of the paintwork as we're doing this up. Easy to slip and hit the side skin. Now, moving forwards, when it comes to doing up the clamp here, these do have a torque rating, which is usually printed on the end of the head there. In this case, this is a slightly older one, and unfortunately that's not really very visible, but it's usually around 9 Newton meters. If you don't have anything to measure that with, don't panic. And really the objective is that the exhaust needs to be angling out of the car like this. It's somewhere near a 90-degree angle. If it's hanging down, we're going to scrape it on the floor and make a mess of things. So the job of this is to stop the exhaust from rotating when we go over bumps. So if you hold that into a position that you're happy with, and then just do this up with a decent amount of tension, it's fair to say, so there you go. And then just check your exhaust. If you can push down on it and have it move, then it's not tight enough, but that is nice and solid, it's not going anywhere, so that's tight enough. So that's a nice easy guide for you on how to replace your silencer or fit a catalyst bypass pipe, or of course the other way around if you're on your way to the MOT station. There are several different options of silencers for most types of Caterhams, so it is worth exploring if you want it louder or quieter in fact. This customer is certainly going to enjoy lots of noise. That's all for today's instalment, and as always we hope you found it informative. If you have any questions of your own that you'd like us to cover, then do post them in the comments below. If you would like to email us privately, then of course that's okay. We have an email address set up of 7q@turn7.co.uk, and we will look forward to hearing from you. But for now, that's all. Thanks very much and goodbye. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the silencer, which is a pretty straightforward job. So that's held on a bracket at the back, and just with oh dear.